And this should feel kind of familiar because this is basically just now we're comparing text in different genres. So yesterday we compared text in similar genres. So lesson 12 for today, looking at things in different genres. And by time we finish the lesson today, you'll be able to determine the purpose of text written in the same genre and determine the scope or emphasis of each text. I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday. So that word genre, it just basically means type or characteristic of a group. And it's the root is from the French word for gender, right? Which we also think of as types, right? So looking at things now in separate genres, let's listen to our audio.
When you compare and contrast texts in different genres, or forms of writing, you may find that they cover the same topic, but differ in their purpose or overall impact. For example, one text may set out to persuade you to feel or think a certain way about a topic, while the other text may simply inform you about a topic. Each text may address the same audience, but the texts may vary in scope or emphasize different ideas. For example, a news article gives you information, and an editorial gives you an opinion about the information in the article.
Yeah, so that in particular, and we're going to probably see that, and that's why I was telling you to make sure when we look at the source where something comes from. So if it's, an editorial, we know that it is opinion oriented. The author is probably trying to persuade the audience to, support their opinion. Whereas, just a news article is offering you information. And you may also, want to go to something like, an encyclopedia or, to get more information about a subject that you just read about in a news article, which is just for information and to inform you of something. Or, same thing with an editorial. Well, I don't know enough about this. I need other information. So we, do that a lot. And so it's still going to be about the same, subject. We're just looking at different forms of writing in order to, think a large, in broader terms about that subject. So let's see here what we have. So our first two pieces here, fight in Portland and no to fluoride. So there's short ones here. Let me take a look. The first one says the fight over fluoridation has erupted in Portland. The debate has prompted something of an existential crisis in this city, which votes Tuesday on whether to overturn the city council's 2012 decision to fluoridate. Citizens who pride themselves on tolerance are divided on the response to fluoridated water. Is it an intrusion into personal liberty or a compassionate public health measure? All right. Like I said, make sure you look at the source. That's from the Wall Street Journal's article. So this is the news article, Tooth and Nail, Fluoride Fight Cracks Portland's Left by Joel Millman, 2013. So, they add fluoride to our water to help keep our teeth strengthened in a lot of communities. So the text box says the term scope refers to the extent to which an author covers a topic. Look for ways in which each author delves into the same topic. Ask yourself, does each author refer to specific details or take a more general approach, right? So the scope, are we talking about, fluoridation across the United States? In this case, we're talking about particular community, right? In Portland, Oregon, a particular city. So scope comes into play. So our second piece, no to fluoride, okay? We might see that this has an angle to it. Fluoridation chemicals are unpurified industrial byproducts from fertilizer manufacturing and are not the same as the fluoride in toothpaste. The Portland Water Bureau said it will add 1.1 million pounds a year of the fluoridation chemical fluorosilicylic acid to our drinking water if fluoridation is approved. Adding it to our water would expose Portlanders and our kids to another risky chemical at a time when we are already overexposed to a host of chemicals from plastics to pesticides. Okay, so looking here from the cleanwaterportland.org, keyword here, editorial, 12 reasons to vote no, right? And also, right, a different website, different scope, like we talked about here. This is local to the Portland area, whereas the Wall Street Journal is basically a national publication. And it says, to determine purpose, style, and overall impact, note the author's language, right? Style and tone. Dramatic language can indicate an appeal to emotions. It also tells you, how they think about a particular subject. So risky chemical, that tips their hand that they're not really jiving with the idea of adding, this to their water. Overexposed to a host of chemicals, right? Doesn't name them. That's something to look out for as well. But that's, fairly strong language, overexposed to a host of chemicals. So that should tip you off as far as, their point of view on the subject. All right, so let's move on over to the quiz. We're probably going to be dealing with some fluoride again. Yep, there's our fluoride. So the fight in Portland, right? The first is a news article explaining the issue, right? That there's this contentious element. There's this fight in Portland over whether or not to use fluoridation. And then we get an opinion piece from maybe a Portlander, somebody that might be more familiar with, Portland. They do tell you specifics about how much they're planning on adding and things like that. And they're giving their viewpoint as far as this should not occur. And then content topics. So the purpose of a news article is to present a factual report of an event in the news. Theoretically, it should be an unbiased report on an event. So just like the Wall Street Journal, fairly unbiased, it's presenting, that there's this fight about fluoridation in the city of Portland. The purpose of an editorial, keep saying this as I hit my table, of an editorial is to present an author's or organization's opinion about a newsworthy event, offering their opinion on that. It may be well-informed, it may be misinformed, that's where you have to start looking at the facts they're using and things like that. And number one, let's go with Sasha Gay for number one.
How does the two passages differ in purpose? A, the article reports about fluoride debate, but the editorial argues against fluoridating Portland's water. B, the article entertains with a story about the fluoridation debate, but the editorial tells who supports fluoridation. C, the article explains why water fluoridation in Portland is controversial, but the editorial argues why fluoridation is necessary. And D, the article asks readers to support Portland's water fluoridation, but the editorial explains the dangers of fluoridation. Is it D?
It's A. So the article is basically reporting on that debate, right? The fight for fluoridation in Portland, and the editorial is definitely arguing against it, right? Using that strong language about overexposed chemicals, a risky chemical, tipping its hand there that it is against the idea of fluoridation. A for 1, 2. Now we have two new, I think it's from the same sources, but we have two new passages. Tracy, you want to read the first passage for us on the fight in Portland here?
Yes. Fighting Poland, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention calls water fluoridation a safe and healthy way to effectively prevent tooth decay, and one of 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century. But anti-fluoride campaigners argue that it poses serious health dangers. Until last year, Poland were the largest city in US not to approve fluoridation. Poland city leaders say they were spurred toward fluoride when a citizens group noted rising tooth decay among low-income and minority children. With support, with support of the Origin Health Authority, the city council voted to begin fluoridation in 2014. I concluded fluoridation is a safe, cost-effective, and common sense approach to promoting public health, said Nick Frisch, Poland City Council Commissioner. I did not reach this decision lightly. I have heard from Polanders who strongly oppose adding fluoride to Poland's water. From the Wall Street Journal article Tooth and Now, Fluorified Grass Poland's Left by Joe Millen, 2013.
Yeah, so there's more from that same article, right? So reporting on the issue, right? Fairly unbiased, straightforward news article. And I'll go ahead and read our next section here. So it says there is no scientific dispute that fluoridation chemicals would add arsenic, lead, and mercury to our water along with fluoride. The CDC admits that 43% of fluoridation chemicals tested contain arsenic, 2% contain lead, and 3% contain copper. Other toxics from mercury to chromium have also been found in fluoridation chemicals. Promoters claim the levels are too low to matter, but the Environmental Protection Agency is clear that toxics like arsenic and lead have no safe level, and even the smallest levels increase cancer and IQ deficit risk. The idea that it is okay to add any of these toxics to our clean drinking water is a remnant from 1940s thinking and doesn't reflect what we know today about the importance of clean water for our health and the health of our kids. Recent science supports that fluoridation is more dangerous than previously believed. The National Academy of Sciences 2006 report, Fluoride in Drinking Water, reviewed hundreds of recent studies linking fluoride levels in drinking water to a broad spectrum of human health ailments, from neurological damage and thyroid disorders to excessive fluoride consumption in infants and increased risks of bone cancer. The 500-plus page report found fluorides have the ability to interfere with the functions of the brain, and Down's syndrome is a biologically plausible outcome of exposure to fluoride, and that fluoride appears to have the potential to initiate or promote cancers, particularly of the bone. And that is from that same editorial offering opinion, cleanwaterportland.org, Access 2013 from 2013. And our question here, question number 2, let's go to Etta. Read question 2 for us.
Excuse me, how do the two texts differ in audience? A, the article is written for a general audience, but the editorial is written for Portland voters. B, the article is written for Portland voters, but the editorial is written for a general audience. C, the article is written for Portland city leaders, but the editorial is written for scientists. Or D, the article is written for fluoridation supporters, but the editorial is written for fluoride protesters. Is it D?
It's A. So the article, right, from Wall Street Journal, national newspaper, written for a general audience, reporting on this issue. The editorial, coming from Clean Water Portland, is written more for Portland voters, people that are going to be affected, by this fluoridation, one way or the other. So A for 2, 3, same passages, it looks like. Yes. Same passages for number 3. Let's go to Grace for number 3.
Which detail in the editorial shows that the author acknowledges a differing side on the issue? A, the CDC admit that fluoridation chemicals contain arsenic, lead, and copper. B, recent scientific studies reveal that fluoridation is more dangerous than once believed. C, the Environmental Protection Agency says that no exposure to arsenic, lead, or copper is safe. And D, promoters of fluoridation claim that chemical levels in water are too low to matter. D.
Yeah, D as in dog. And that makes him an effective writer, whether you agree or disagree with what he's saying. This helps build a case if you can acknowledge part of that. It's like, okay, well, if all this is so bad, for starters, why would you do it in the first place? So you need to acknowledge that. And one way he does that is showing that it's like, well, okay, so people that are promoting fluoridation claim that the chemical levels in water are too low to matter. And then he, offers some information to help refute that. So, it's a pretty strong writing there as far as, putting forth a point of view and supporting it with facts and evidence. But, and overall, it is still an opinion. So D as in dog for 3, 4, still on our fluoride, no fluoride. Nilda, could you read number 4?
Yes, both authors use direct quotations. How do you say that?
Quotations?
Yes, to support their ideas. How do these quotations affect the overall impact of the text? A, quotations make the text more interesting, adding to their entertainment value. B, quotations lend credibility while adding a striking commentary. C, quotations emphasize the author's expertise on the topic, giving weight to their claims. D, quotations motivate the reader into action, be present expert opinions. C.
B, lending credibility, right? The first thing we always talk about with quotations, that means you're lifting language from another source, you're directly quoting, you're directly using the words from somebody else, whether it's in a speech or it's written. And when you put those into something that you're writing, whether it's an editorial or it's a news article, it helps add credibility because that is, should be an expert or coming from a reliable and credible, article or journal or something like that. So that means, for one, you've done your research and you can, add that to your writing to show some expert opinion or, adding facts to your argument. All right. So B as in boy for 4. Everybody get all the answers for the quiz there. 1 was A, 2 was A, 3 is D as in dog, for B as in boy. Okay. So we'll move on over to the workbook and restating our idea of different genres. And it's really important, you know, so especially when you're getting information from somewhere, right? You don't want to draw your information from an editorial or opinion. You want to go to a news article or another website, maybe a .gov or something like that to get information from, to get facts. Here, you will often need to compare and contrast text with similar information in different genres, right? Yesterday, we compared things that were very similar, like the nomination addresses of Kennedy and Roosevelt. You know, same purpose in writing in the same sort of format. But here, often the author's purpose, audience, or the information itself determines which genre an author will use. For example, you might find similar information in a speech and an interview, or in a magazine article and a recipe. On the other hand, you might find not only different information, but also different writing styles, different audiences, and different purposes. Same thing with our Wall Street Journal article. They don't use a lot of expressive adjectives, that are extremely negative or extremely positive, right? Unless it's a quote from somebody. But in writing and reporting something to the audience, they're trying to just convey the issue and the facts. On the other hand, an editorial with an opinion, you'll find stronger language, the use of more descriptive words and stronger language. So that was really good examples that they gave us for that. Now, let's see, we have talking about Rosa Parks. So our first passage, so this is President Obama honoring Rosa Parks. And he says, Mr. Speaker, to the friends and family of Rosa Parks, to the distinguished guests who are gathered here today, this morning we celebrate a seamstress, slight in stature but mighty in courage. She defied the odds and she defied injustice. She lived a life of activism, but also a life of dignity and grace. And in a single moment, with the simplest of gestures, she helped change America and the world. So that's remarks from the president at dedication of statue honoring Rosa Parks at the U.S. Capitol, Barack Obama, 2013. The first passage here begins with President Obama addressing his audience directly. This introduction shows that the genre is a speech, right? Mr. Speaker. So he's talking to the Speaker of the House, and then he's addressing the family and friends of Rosa Parks. So it's some type of assembly, to dedicate the statue. And that, shows you that it's a speech. It's like a public speech. Secondly, Rosa Parks FAQ, right? FAQ, frequently asked questions. Like that's the acronym there. So website, obviously, we'll look at that. Excuse me. So the question, first off, it asked, how is Rosa Parks a pioneer of civil rights? And then it gives us information. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks, a black seamstress, refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a public bus in Montgomery, Alabama. She was arrested for violating the segregation laws and fined $10. Her action helped touch off the civil rights movement. A 381-day bus boycott in Montgomery followed. The boycott led to a successful Supreme Court challenge to segregation on public buses. And we, last few days have read a little bit more about that when we compared similar texts there. So what happened that day on the bus? The seats for white passengers in the front of the bus were occupied by blacks when several white passengers boarded the bus. The bus driver asked Parks and 3 other black passengers to give up their seats in the middle of the bus for a white man who was left standing. Parks refused. The bus driver had Parks arrested. And then the second passage is written in an FAQ, just like I said, that stands for frequently asked questions format. Answers are provided to typical questions that someone might ask about Rosa Parks. So whatever website that's from, or whatever, information that comes from frequently asked questions, just like it says, things that are commonly asked, and you supply information about that. Two different genres, right? One's a public speech, one's basically information about the person, the subject of President Obama's speech. All right, so let's start workbook and our test taking tips. So when answering questions about paired passages, remember that both parts of an answer choice must be correct. Read questions carefully and completely. Reject answers that are correct for one passage only, right? We talked about this. Make sure it falls in line for both passages. All right, number one, let's go back to Sasha Gay. Could you read number one for us?
On the basis of the information in both passages, what is the most logical conclusion to draw about Park's arrest? A. Park acts of defiance help others fight against inequality. B. Parks had caused other public disturbances before her arrest. C. Parks was already acting as part of an orchestrated protest. And D. Parks' actions leading to her arrest were out of character. Is it A?
A, yeah, Park's act of defiance help others fight inequality. Okay, and one is A, and then we have a drag and drop activity here and a couple new passages. It looks like, let's see, Tracy, would you read passage one there, Obama's honoring Rosa Parks?
Yes, Obama honors Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks tell us there's always something we can do. She tells us that we all have responsibilities to ourselves and to one another. She reminds us that this is how change happens, not mainly through the exploits of the famous and the powerful, but through the countless acts of open and anonymous courage and kindness and feeling and responsibility that continually, stubbornly expand our conception of justice, our conception of what is possible. Continue.
Yeah, keep going.
Broadcast singular act of disobedience launched a movement, the tired feet of those who walk the dusty roads of Montgomery helped a nation see that to which it has once been blind. It is because of these men and women that I stand here today. It is because of them that our children grow up in a land more free and more fair and land truer to its founding creed. And that is why this statue belongs in this hall to remind us, no matter how humble or lofty our positions, just what is it that leadership requires, just what it is that citizenship requires. Rosa Parks would have turned 100 years old this month. We do well by placing a statue of her here, but we can do not no greater honor to her memory than to carry forward the power of her principle and a courage point of conviction. From remarks by the President at the dedication of to honoring Rosa Parks Capitol by Barack Obama's 2013.
Okay. And the FAQ next. So Rosa Parks FAQ. And it asks, why did Rosa Parks refuse to give up her seat that day? And the answer that it's given says Parks was tired of the humiliation of segregation laws that made Blacks second-class citizens and treated them as lesser human beings. She decided to take a stand. At the time of her arrest, Parks was already involved in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, and had participated in drives to encourage Black people to register to vote. In fact, on the day of her arrest, she was rushing home to send out notices about the group's coming election of officers. Although she did not plan on getting arrested, she understood the importance of her action and stood by it. And second question here, so how was Parks' action significant? And the answer provided says her act of civil disobedience helped people across the country see the injustice of the segregation laws. In Montgomery, her action touched off a boycott of the buses that lasted over more than a year and helped change the segregation laws. A key figure in the boycott was a local 26-year-old preacher, Martin Luther King Jr., who took up the fight against segregation and became a national civil rights leader. So what did the civil rights movement mean to Parks? The answer says she believed that people of all races are equal and should have equal opportunities. She believed in fighting oppression and continued her support for civil rights throughout her life. And dragging and dropping here. So our first column, Obama honors Rosa Parks. So from his speech, and then Rosa Parks FAQ. So we're dragging and dropping each statement into the correct column in the chart. So from which one would we see all people deserve the same opportunities?
The speech. I mean, Obama honors Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks.
It's from the FAQ and from that last line in particular, that last piece, right? Believe that all races are equal, we should have equal opportunities. People should believe in themselves and their ideals.
Obama honors Rosa Parks.
Rosa, yes. So, and there we go. Got the rest of the answers there. So courageous acts of ordinary people and act of civil disobedience, right? So sort of tying those things to Rosa Parks in his speech. So again, different genres, but talking about the same topic, right? The same subject in each. So we should be able to submit there. Everything lights up green for us. Obama honors Rosa Parks, courageous acts by ordinary people. An act of civil disobedience changed the nation. And then the FAQ, all people deserve the same opportunities and people should believe in themselves and their ideals. Okay. And, well, we got new passages here. How about Etta? Would you mind reading the first one here? My Greek Childhood, the memoir.
Okay. When we kids were sick with fever, our grandmother would make us Greek chicken soup, the universal cure for everything from colds and flu to broken hearts. She swore by its healing powers, but we always laughed. After all, it was Chicago in the 1980s. Even our European-born grandfather believed that remedies came from the pharmacy, not the kitchen. But Grandma was a woman who, despite a modern American upbringing and chic modern wardrobe, still subscribed to the old ways. Indeed, some of her superstitions were downright embarrassing to us. The worst was the Kakomite,
Fair enough.
the evil eye charm she pinned to our clothing to protect us from envy. If one of us had a headache, she'd close her eyes and say the Vascina.
Maybe, yeah, something like that.
But yeah, Vascania, a
Yeah.
prayer to ward off the evil eye. I'll admit we usually felt better soon after, but the cure was probably the result of the anamorphine my grandfather gave us. As Grandma sat in a corner chanting, Grandpa would roll his eyes, reach into the medicine cabinet, and with a constant
Cons-
conspiratorial
conspiratorial.
conspiratorial grin, hand us a pill. Still, her chicken soup seemed to work better than any pharmaceutical in curing a cold or flu. The tasty warm liquid soothed our throats, and the rich aroma seemed to clear nasal passages. The moment one of us caught a chill, Grandma would march to the stove, place a pot on the burner, and throw in a chicken carcass from the ample supply in the freezer. A few eggs, some rice, and several squeezed lemons. She'd even include more bones and several feet also in ample supply in the freezer, insisting that the marrow in the bones would conquer all illness. We stuffed discontinuing her theory as an old wives' tale. The idea of ingesting chicken marrow, unappetizing at best. We ate the soup because we liked it. It was tasty and soothing, probably the only appealing form of nourishment. However, the joke was on us. As it turns out, in modern science had proved this chicken soup, especially the kind made with bones and feet, boosts the human immune system. Although I'm not sure about broken hearts and Keiko Madi, the chicken soup remedy was indeed the real thing.
All right, and then we have elderberry syrup recipe. So let's see what we got here. This winter, you cold and flu sufferers are probably reaching for over-the-counter remedies to make you feel normal again. But did you know that many of these medications are not only ineffective but unsafe as well? No need to worry. There's a natural, effective remedy that's absolutely safe and tastes great. It's also fast and easy to make using only 4 ingredients: elderberry syrup, which contains the medicinal properties of the black elderberry tree, is rich in antioxidants, and recent studies have shown that it's a powerful antiviral as well. Consequently, it kills cold and flu bugs while it gives your immune system a natural boost. To make elderberry syrup, you need 1 cup dried elderberries, cheesecloth, 1 cinnamon stick, lidded pot, 4 cups distilled water, strainer, 2 cups sugar, measuring cup. And then we have our directions. So mix water, berries, and cinnamon in a pot, cover and bring to a boil on medium heat. Reduce heat to a simmer and raise the lid just enough to let out some steam. Let the mixture reduce halfway and let it cool. This step will take an hour or more. Strain the mixture through a sieve and lined with cheesecloth. With the berries wrapped in the cloth, wring to get out the remaining juice. Measure the juice, which should come to 2 cups. If you have more than 2 cups, continue to simmer. If less, add water to reach 2 cups. Return the mixture to the pot and add 2 cups of sugar. Boil and stir until sugar is dissolved. Let the mixture cool. Pour your syrup into glass bottles and refrigerate. This syrup should last a year. Adults can take 1 teaspoon per day to prevent illness, or 1 tablespoon 3 to 5 times per day as a cure. Check with a pediatrician or trained herbalist for children's dosing. Caution: use black elderberries only. Sambucus nigra. To not use red elderberries. They are toxic. Not to be snarky, but using them would defeat the purpose of this recipe. Enjoy and be well. Okay, so looking here at the memoir at the top right, that's our first passage, and then the recipe. Very different types of genres. Let's go to Grace. You read question 3 for us.
All right. Question 3. The purpose of the memoir is to persuade readers to make their own chicken soup. B, contrast homemade chicken soup with store-bought chicken soup. C, explain how to make the artist's grandmother's chicken soup. And D, entertain readers with a story about chicken soup. A.
So it's D. This is basically just for entertainment. It doesn't really, offer any type of, persuasion. It's not making an argument. It's like, hey, make chicken soup to cure all your illnesses or anything. This is basically what I assume is a, sort of nonfiction writing about somebody's, experience growing up. Oh, we get a little bit of humor in there, right, between the grandfather and not much of a belief in sort of these home remedies and giving the kids Tylenol or acetaminophen. So 3 is D as in dog. 4, our recipe. I'd rather have the chicken soup recipe, to tell you the truth. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so 4. Let's go to Nilda. You read 4. You got 4 for us, Nilda?
Hello? Yes?
You want to read
I
number?
had it muted, that's why, sorry.
That's fine.
How do the how do you say that word?
Memoir.
Memoir in the recipe differ in the structure? A, the memoir presents a list of steps in a process, but the recipe presents ideas in order of importance. B, the memoir is written in paragraph form, but the recipe is written primarily as a number list of steps. C, the memoir makes comparisons and contrasts, but the recipe presents a main idea in details. D, the memoir explains a series of causes and effects, but the recipe presents sequential order. B.
Yeah, right. 1 is paragraph form. Just give you, sort of a anecdote about this person's life, and the other one, obviously, right, listing ingredients, listing directions. Of course, if you go online anymore, it seems like every recipe has a story that goes before it. And if you're looking for something, it's like, geez, just give me the ingredients, give me the recipe. I don't need to know your life story. There's always seems to be something. Oh, well, I was traveling here, we did this. I'm like, no, I just want the recipe. But yeah, so 1, very different genres. Absolutely. Something, I mean, that's way different when you're talking about a memoir or you're talking about a recipe. And then 5, let's go back up to Sasha Gay here. Could you read number 5 for us?
The word consequently in paragraph 2 of the recipe signals that the information following the word will A, contradict information in the paragraph, B, have no relation to the rest of the paragraph, C, result from information in the paragraph, and D, show the sequence of steps in the paragraph. Is it C?
It is C 4-5. Yes, result from information in the paragraph, right? We talked about some of those signal words and stuff. Consequently, right, is one of those that you're going to encounter. If somebody says consequently, right, then they're going to give you the consequences. They're going to give you the result of that. So see their result from information in the paragraph. And 6, our same passage here, the recipe. So number 6, let's go to Tracy. You want to read 6 for us?
How do the main moth and recipe differ in scope? The recipe gives in information, but the memo is detailed and information. B, the recipe explain the process of a home remedy, but the memo is vague about process details. See the memo explain how the redeem was used, but the receipt focuses solely on reparation. The could you run up the
recipe.
no, no, I did not read the because
So, wrong way. Okay.
the memo introduces the redeem and then provide detailed instruction, but recite no instruction. B.
For 6 is B. Yeah, recipe explains process making a home remedy. Memoir is vague about the process, right? I'm sitting here, I'm wanting the chicken soup recipe, but I'm not going to get it. So yeah, both describing food, that's sort of what their subject is, and how they sort of treat illness. The elderberry recipe, the syrup, as sort of a home remedy, and the memoir piece is an anecdote about how this chicken soup helped make them feel better. And then they finish with this idea that, recent studies have shown that it does help boost your immune system with the ingredients that this grandmother used in her soup. 7. Let's go to Etta for number 7.
Okay, let's see. Which statement best describes the impact of both passages? A, the informal writing style makes both passages easy to read and the detailed recipe easy to follow. B, the gloomy tone emphasizing illness makes the remedies seem unpleasant and useless. C, the cautionary tone emphasizes the dangers of the syrup and the effectiveness of the chicken soup. Or D, the research information encourages readers to use both remedies rather than over-the-counter remedies. A.
Yeah, right. Both are kind of informal, and that kind of that easygoing, folky kind of writing style. Not only is it sort of pleasant and easy to read, it just kind of lends itself to the subject, and home remedy, right? So 7 is A. 8, sticking with our recipe and chicken soup here again. How about Grace? Back to you for number 8.
All right. Although both passages are for general audience, the author of the memo assumes that readers most likely A, know how to make great chicken soup, B, are familiar with Greek culture, C, do not follow superstitions, and D, treat cold and flu with chicken soup. Is it A or C?
It's C, right? So, the way she presents that as far as, sort of a old sort of traditional idea, and, pointing out, that it's sort of this old school way of thinking with the home remedy of the chicken soup and some of the other stuff that her grandmother did. So, thinking about that and sort of and that adds to the way she's viewing her audience. So likely her audience is not going to be she would write differently if this was maybe an older audience that followed the same type of superstitions. If she was writing for a age group that her grandmother fell in, that may still kind of adhere to those types of superstitions, she might write a little bit differently about it. So 8 is C as in cat. And just plowing right along here for same stuff. Yeah, looks like we might go all the way through here. 9, Number 9, let's go to Nilda. If you want to read number 9 for us.
Yes. How do the passages differ in emphasis? A. The recipe does more than the memoir to express why natural remedies are preferable to over-the-counter medicines. B. The memoir does more than recipe to stress the ease of preparing the remedy. C. The memoir does more than recipe to stress safety measures. D. The recipe does more than the memoir to stress the unusual ingredients in the remedy. Mm, A.
Yeah. Now, she does mention towards the end there that it's, when she says that the kind of chicken soup that her grandmother made with the bones and feet boosts the human immune system. But the recipe and the paragraphs ahead of that give you more. They talk about antioxidants and natural, antiviral, natural boost to the immune system, so forth and so on. So a little more stressing that idea of why that would be effective or more effective than over-the-counter medicines. So 9 is A. 10, back to Sasha Gay. Number 10, please.
Which perspective do the two passages share? A. Anyone using natural remedies as well as over-the-counter medicines should consult a doctor. B. Natural remedies can be as effective as modern medication. C. Homemade remedies are of better quality than store-bought remedies. And D. People should take great care in using over-the-counter medicines. Is it C?
It's B, right? So they're both sort of expressing this idea that natural remedies can be as effective as modern medication. There at the end, and just even with, this placebo effect, which the author of the memoir, kind of makes it. We just felt better. We felt better after we ate it. We felt better when she, did her little, her kind of voodoo kind of things. So 10 is B as in boy. And 11, final one here, wrapping it up. How about Tracy? You want to finish off here, number 11.
Yes. On the basis of the information in the passages, the grandmother in the memo would most likely favor A. Over-the-counter medications for a cold, B. Homemade elderberry syrup to prevent flu, C. Consulting a doctor for any illness, D. Wearing a calculated to ward of viruses. The grandmother. B.
Yeah, she would likely want that recipe for the elderberry syrup, right? That kind of goes along with how the author explains her grandmother as far as being, someone who's, goes with superstitions, goes with home remedies and things like that. So they would want that elderberry syrup recipe. 11, B as in boy. And that is it for the workbook. Did everybody get all of the answers there? Need to repeat anything? Yeah, everybody good? Okay, so, this was a lot like yesterday's, just looking at two different forms of writing about the same subject or sort of general subjects like we have there with the elderberry syrup, home remedies, and then you have somebody in a memoir writing about basically the home remedies their grandmother used. And then just comparing those texts. So, Not a whole lot to add there. Any questions about that though, as far as just pretty straightforward lesson. Okay. Tomorrow, as I mentioned, we'll do the summative review for social studies. So just, come with you, be prepared to answer questions. We'll try to move through that at a, try to get through it in about 60 minutes to set our pace so you know how that feels for the practice test and then your GED test. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow, and we'll fill in with any weak spots or anything, okay? So that's it. You guys have a good afternoon, and I will see you all tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.